Nigel Farage has just shaken the very walls of Parliament. In a stunning move that's already sending shockwaves across the country, Farage stood tall, calm, firm and fierce, and demanded something the entire political establishment has been terrified to face: an immediate general election. Not tomorrow, not next month. Now. This wasn't just another speech. This was a declaration of war against the corrupt status quo. And as the chamber erupted in gasps and murmurs, one thing became painfully clear. The old order is crumbling, and Farage is ready to tear it down brick by brick. This wasn't a carefully planned announcement or a behind-the-scenes whisper. It was a thunderous statement made right on the floor of the most powerful room in Britain. Nigel Farage stood, locked eyes with the front bench, and said exactly what millions of people across this country have been thinking but had no voice to express. This government is illegitimate. The people demand a say. We need an immediate election. The air turned cold. Starmer stared, stunned. The Tories sat frozen. This wasn't the Nigel Farage of rallies and interviews. This was a man transformed by the weight of the public's fury. The country, he declared, is being run by elites who were never elected to make the decisions they are now forcing down the throats of hard-working Britons. Farage didn't mince words. He called out Starmer by name. He accused him of hiding behind a failing government built on broken promises and betrayal. And the most shocking part, he was armed with facts, with numbers, with a tidal wave of public opinion crashing behind him. Poll after poll shows that the British people are done with this charade. Reform UK is now leading the race. 30% of voters are backing Farage and his movement. Labour has slipped to 22%. The Tories are in free fall at 21%. The so-called mainstream parties can't even scrape together a majority between them. Farage made it clear, there is no mandate, there is no trust, and there is no time left to pretend. The reaction inside Parliament was explosive. Labour MPs shifted nervously in their seats. Tory backbenchers whispered in panic. For the first time in years, someone had broken through the robotic rehearsals and scripted talking points. Farage said what needed to be said. This government is holding on to power by fear, not by consent. He accused Starmer of selling out the country, of dancing to the tune of unelected global interests, and of betraying the very people who once believed he could bring change. The betrayal of the Chagos Islands, the surging crime rates, the economic collapse, the broken justice system, it was all laid bare in that single fiery address. But Farage wasn't just criticising. He was rallying. He was calling on every betrayed voter, every abandoned worker, every silenced voice to stand up and demand better. He pointed to the pain and frustration bubbling across the nation: rising bills, collapsing borders, violent criminals walking free, and citizens being pushed to the edge while politicians smile and wave. And with a booming voice, he made his demand: dissolve this farce of a parliament and return power to the people. Give Britain the election it deserves immediately. And the truth is, Farage wasn't alone. Millions across the UK felt like they were standing with him in that moment. This was more than a political stunt. It was a direct challenge to the foundation of a system that no longer represents the people it claims to serve. In homes across the country, people looked at their screens and thought, finally, someone has said it. Someone has the guts to fight back. Farage's words echoed far beyond the chamber. They lit a fire under a movement that was already building at breakneck speed, and the panic spreading across the political class. That's the sound of a regime that knows its days are numbered, because this wasn't just a speech, it was a spark. And what comes next might just change everything. What began as a fiery stand in Parliament has now exploded into a full-blown national reckoning. Nigel Farage's call for an immediate general election has unleashed a political earthquake that is shaking Britain to its core. Within minutes of his bold declaration, headlines erupted, social media ignited, and television pundits scrambled to respond. But no amount of spin can mask the truth anymore. The people are awakening, and the establishment is spiralling into panic. Farage's speech wasn't just another protest, it was a rallying cry that is reverberating through every village, town and city in the UK. and the tremors it's causing aren't just political, they're historical. The polls tell a brutal story. Reform UK has surged past every major party, claiming the top spot in poll after poll. At 30%, it now holds a commanding lead over Labour, which has plummeted to 22%, while the Conservatives struggle at 21%. Combined, Labour and the Tories, once the titans of British politics, no longer represent even half the electorate. That is not just a collapse, that is extinction. Farage's insurgent movement is devouring support from all sides. Disillusioned Labour voters feel betrayed. Long-time Tories are jumping ship. Even the politically disengaged, those who had long given up on the broken system, are being pulled back into the fold, electrified by a man who speaks their language and fights their battles. But the media? They're in meltdown mode. The mainstream press, long used to mocking Farage or dismissing reform as a fringe movement, is now scrambling to catch up. Overnight, Farage has gone from outsider to frontrunner, from rebel to revolutionary. And the talking heads who once laughed at the idea of reform leading the polls are now asking whether a Farage premiership is not only possible, but inevitable. The political elite, so comfortable in their echo chambers, are suddenly waking up to a Britain that no longer believes in them, and their fear is showing. Keir Starmer's camp responded with hollow denials and desperate attempts to redirect the conversation. Instead of addressing the public outrage, Labour operatives released vague statements about misinformation and staying the course. But that's no longer enough. The public isn't listening to rehearsed lines and PR tactics anymore. They're listening to the raw, unscripted anger of a man who calls out the betrayal they feel deep in their bones. And at the centre of that betrayal is one issue that has become the lightning rod for the entire movement: the surrender of the Chagos Islands. Starmer's secretive decision to hand over the British-controlled Chagos Islands to Mauritius has ignited fury like few issues in recent memory. Framed by the left as decolonisation, ordinary Britons see it for what it is: surrender, plain and simple. Billions of taxpayer pounds flushed down the drain. A critical military foothold in the Indian Ocean abandoned. National pride trampled in the name of globalist appeasement, and all of it done in quiet, far away from public scrutiny. No referendum, no debate. Just a handshake behind closed doors and a shrug to the cameras. Suella Braverman, the former home secretary, didn't hold back. She called it virtue signalling decolonisation, a reckless move designed to appease international courts and win applause from woke institutions rather than serve the interests of the British people. And she's not alone. Former ministers, senior military officials and legal scholars have come out swinging, calling the move both unconstitutional and strategically catastrophic. But perhaps most devastating of all was the public reaction: waves of outrage, disgust, and sorrow. To many, this wasn't just another bad policy. This was the symbolic death of British sovereignty. And in the midst of that fury, Farage's words landed like a hammer blow. "Britain is broken," he said, and it's time to take it back. He spoke directly to those who feel like strangers in their own country. He condemned the rise in crime, the collapse of the justice system, and the erosion of British values under successive governments that cared more about headlines than hard-working citizens. And most importantly, he offered not just outrage, but action, a path forward, a battle plan to restore national pride, rebuild the economy, and return power to the people. Across the nation, rallies are forming. Reform UK's grassroots network, once small and dismissed, is now growing rapidly, with new chapters springing up in cities and towns where traditional parties have long held sway. The political revolution that many thought would never come is now unfolding in real time. And the old guard? They are in absolute panic. Leaked memos from both Labour and Conservative headquarters reveal a growing fear that Farage's momentum is not a passing wave, but a tidal shift that could rewrite British politics forever. This isn't just about party politics anymore. This is about identity, about sovereignty, about a public that feels used, lied to, and abandoned. And Farage, for all his controversy, is the one man speaking directly to that pain. He's not offering polished sound bites. He's offering a fight, a movement, a rebellion. The establishment's worst nightmare has come true. The people have found their voice, and they are demanding a say. And if Parliament refuses to listen, then the message is clear. Reform UK, powered by millions of angry, hopeful, determined citizens, will take the battle to the streets, to the airwaves, to the ballot boxes. Because Britain isn't just broken, it's bleeding. And Nigel Farage has lit the fuse on a political firestorm that may soon engulf the entire nation. At the heart of the growing political storm lies the bitter controversy surrounding the Chagos Islands deal, a decision that has enraged millions of Britons and exposed the deep fractures within the current government. Keir Starmer's covert agreement to transfer sovereignty of the British Indian Ocean Territory to Mauritius has become the defining symbol of Labour's perceived betrayal of the nation. This is not merely a territorial dispute, it is a profound question about Britain's future, its identity, and its standing on the world stage. The deal represents a monumental surrender of sovereignty, a blow that echoes louder because of the secrecy and timing behind it. For decades, the Chagos Islands have been a vital military asset, hosting one of the UK's most strategic bases, Diego Garcia, crucial for intelligence, defence and global power projection. The islands have allowed Britain to maintain a foothold in a volatile region, giving it leverage in international affairs and safeguarding national security interests. Yet, in an act widely condemned as capitulation, Starmer's government agreed to relinquish control under pressure from international legal bodies and globalist political interests. This decision came without adequate public debate, without the consent of Parliament, and with little transparency. Instead, it was quietly finalised behind closed doors, betraying the trust of the British people. Critics argue that this move was motivated more by a desire to appease international courts and curry favour with diplomatic allies than by any real strategic or moral imperative. The left-wing narrative frames it as an act of decolonisation and justice for the Chagosian people who were forcibly removed decades ago. While the humanitarian issue is real and deserving of attention, the manner in which the UK government handled the transfer has left many feeling humiliated and powerless. To them, this is not progress. It is a reckless abandonment of British interests on the altar of political correctness and globalist ideology. The financial implications are staggering. Billions of pounds of British taxpayers' money have been funneled into this surrender, raising questions about accountability and priorities. How could a government justify losing such a strategically crucial asset at a time when national security concerns are rising globally? The decision coincides with growing unrest worldwide and increased geopolitical tensions, making Britain's retreat from the Chagos Islands even more alarming. Military experts warn that losing this base could severely weaken Britain's defence capabilities and influence, leaving the nation vulnerable at a time when strength is most needed. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman's scathing condemnation of the deal struck a chord with the public. She called it virtue-signalling decolonisation and accused the government of prioritising globalist approval over British interests. Braverman highlighted the hypocrisy of a government that professes to protect national pride while quietly dismantling the very pillars of sovereignty. The image of Starmer smiling smugly while signing away British land has become emblematic of a leadership out of touch with the realities faced by ordinary citizens. It is a moment many see as the ultimate betrayal. The deal has not only fractured public trust but also exposed deep divisions within the political establishment. Leaked reports reveal intense behind-the-scenes disagreements within Labour ranks, with some members warning that the agreement would alienate core supporters and damage the party's standing irreparably. The Conservatives, traditionally defenders of British sovereignty, have been caught off guard and are struggling to find a coherent response. Their failure to challenge the deal effectively has fueled accusations of complacency and complicity. Public outrage has manifested in protests, petitions, and growing support for political movements promising to reverse this decision. Farage and Reform UK have seized on this issue, positioning themselves as the true defenders of British sovereignty and national pride. Their message resonates deeply with voters tired of political elites making decisions that undermine the country's interests without public consent. For many, this isn't just about the Chagos Islands, it is about the future direction of Britain itself. The controversy also underscores a broader crisis of confidence in the current government's ability to lead. The Chagos Islands deal is the latest in a series of missteps and scandals that have eroded public faith. From soaring energy prices and inflation to rising crime and a justice system seen as failing, Starmer's Labour faces a growing perception of incompetence and disconnect. The symbolic loss of the islands crystallises these frustrations, turning simmering discontent into open anger. Internationally, the move has been met with mixed reactions. Allies in Mauritius and some global institutions have welcomed the transfer, viewing it as a step towards correcting historical injustices. However, Britain's traditional allies, particularly those reliant on the strategic value of Diego Garcia, have expressed concern. The US military, which uses the base extensively, remains cautious, with implications for transatlantic relations looming on the horizon. This diplomatic balancing act adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. In sum, the Chagos Islands controversy is more than a territorial dispute. It is a defining moment for Britain's sovereignty, security, and self-respect. Nigel Farage's call to action taps into the widespread feeling that this government has abandoned its duty to protect the nation. The deal has become a catalyst for political upheaval, mobilising citizens who demand accountability, transparency, and above all, a government that puts Britain first. As this crisis unfolds, it is clear that the future of British politics is at a crossroads, with far-reaching consequences for the country's identity and place in the world. The political landscape of Britain is undergoing a seismic shift. Reform. UK, once considered a fringe party, has surged into the spotlight, challenging the decades-old dominance of Labour and the Conservatives. This transformation is not accidental. It is the culmination of years of public frustration, broken promises, and a widespread feeling that traditional politics no longer serves the people. Nigel Farage has become the rallying figure for millions, who feel abandoned, betrayed, and ignored by the political establishment. His message strikes a chord that resonates beyond party lines and taps directly into the heartbeat of a nation desperate for change. Reform. UK's rise is rooted in the YSR. Deep disillusionment with the big two parties, Labour and the Conservatives, once representing distinct ideologies and visions for the country, have increasingly become indistinguishable to many voters. Both parties are seen as beholden to the same elite interests, engaging in political games, while ordinary citizens struggle with the cost of living, rising crime, and a failing justice system. The Tories collapsed to 21% and Labour's decline to 22%, as shown in recent polls, reflect a public that no longer trusts these traditional powers to deliver meaningful solutions. Reform UK's 30% lead is a clear message. Voters want something radically different. Farage's ability to channel this discontent into a powerful political movement is remarkable. He is not just a politician, he is a symbol of rebellion against the status quo. His speeches, uncompromising and direct, reject the sanitised language of Westminster and instead speak plainly about the issues that matter to everyday Britons. Crime surges, border security collapses, energy prices soar, and families struggle to survive. These are not abstract policy points, but real challenges that Reform UK promises to tackle head-on. The party's platform is simple yet bold. Restore law and order, secure borders, reduce taxes, and put British interests above all else. This message has attracted a diverse coalition of voters. Disillusioned Labour supporters, who feel betrayed by Starmer's perceived soft approach on crime and economic management, are switching allegiance in droves. Former Tory voters, frustrated with the Conservative Party's inability to protect the country's borders and control inflation, see Reform UK as the only viable alternative. Perhaps most striking is the influx of new voters, people who abstained in previous elections but are now galvanised by Farage's call for action. These are the unheard voices of Britain, people who have felt marginalised and dismissed for too long. The impact of this shift is already being felt in Parliament. The established parties are scrambling to respond, but their reactions often reveal confusion and desperation rather than coherent strategy. Labour accuses Reform UK of fear-mongering and divisiveness, while the Conservatives struggle to present a united front. Both parties underestimate the depth of public anger and the appeal of Farage's straightforward, no-nonsense approach. Attempts to dismiss Reform UK as extremist have backfired, only strengthening the party's image as the authentic voice of the people. The media landscape is also shifting. Traditional outlets, long accused of bias towards the establishment, find themselves challenged by the rise of alternative channels like Britain Info, which provide unfiltered news and commentary that resonates with the Reform UK base. This change is significant because it amplifies the party's reach and influence, helping it shape public discourse in ways previously unimaginable. The flow of information is no longer controlled by a few, it is democratised, and Reform UK benefits immensely from this new dynamic. At the heart of this movement is a demand for accountability. Voters want politicians who answer to them, not to international bureaucrats or special interest groups. The Chagos Islands deal epitomises the betrayal that Reform UK seeks to reverse. Farage's insistence on a general election is not just a political manoeuvre. It is a call for renewal, a demand that the people have the final say on the direction of their country. This is a moment of political reckoning, and Reform UK positions itself as the agent of that change. Critics warn that Reform UK's rise could lead to instability or radical shifts in policy. However, supporters argue that the status quo is already untenable. Britain faces unprecedented challenges, and incremental changes from tired parties will not suffice. The surge in support for Reform UK reflects a collective urgency, a need to reset the political order and prioritise the interests of British citizens above all else. It is a revolt against complacency, a plea for leadership that listens and acts decisively. As Reform UK prepares for the coming election, the stakes could not be higher. The party's success would represent a fundamental transformation of British politics, dismantling the entrenched two-party system and introducing a new era defined by patriotism, sovereignty and justice. For millions of Britons, this is a kautiai, historic opportunity to reclaim their country's future from those who have failed them. Nigel Farage's rise is not just a political event. It is a movement fueled by hope, frustration, and an unyielding desire for real change. In conclusion, Reform UK's ascent is a powerful testament to the evolving political mood in Britain. It embodies the frustrations of a population that has grown weary of broken promises and ineffective leadership. Farage's leadership, the party's clear platform, and the widespread public support combine to create a formidable force that challenges the very foundations of the British political establishment. As the nation stands on the brink of potentially its most significant political upheaval in decades, all eyes are on Reform UK to see if it can convert this momentum into lasting change. If you found this update important and want to stay ahead of the political storm shaking Britain, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Britain Info for more true, verified news that the mainstream media won't tell you. Together we can spread the truth and keep fighting for the future of our country. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, your voice matters.